Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And I was just like trying to find space on my computer. It's driving me crazy, honestly. It's driving me crazy. But I have a new Mac coming. It's going to be on the way here soon. Actually, they said they shipped it. Um, I just, I got this little home Mac, like a MacBook Air, and one of my listeners is a technician at the Apple store. So I know you're listening, but I got this MacBook Air, and I was not planning on, at the time that I got this, doing podcasts. I was at my career and I just wanted like my own home computer to just browse the internet, really. And this turned into me creating and editing massive files, and this just doesn't do it for me. So I think I have got it all worked out for today. Welcome, welcome. Happy Monday. It's a beautiful day outside. The wind is blowing and all the trees are falling. I walked out to the water today with Autumn, and we've been slowly getting the geese in the water to get acclimated to our presence. And we just walk there every day and just slowly like get closer and closer. So they don't run as far lately. So it's kind of cute. Anyway, we were standing there, and what I usually do is I'll send my 3 gratefuls for the day to my sponsor and my sister sponsee. I don't know, my sponsor's other sponsee. And so I was standing there getting ready to do my gratefuls, and I was looking at the geese, and some of them were like sleeping, you know. I think they're sleeping when they have like a big poofy chest and they just lay their heads on their chest and they're just floating, and it was super cute. And the leaves were falling from the trees, and I took a little video and a picture to see if I might be able to capture it in a painting or something. I try to, when I see something that's beautiful, I try to take a picture of it for the purpose of either seeing if I can paint it or studying like how the light hits things, so that when I eventually try to paint something similar, that I'll understand a little more what it looks like in real life. It's fascinating how when I look at something like a leaf, okay? I think I shared about this early in the podcast. When I first left my job and I was going out and trying to walk, well, I couldn't walk very far. So I was taking in as much as I could in the short distance that I was walking. And right outside my house, there was this tree that just had this beautiful color changing leaves on it. And I never noticed until then how a leaf, or particularly that tree at least, how it changed color, that it changed color from the outside in, and like the outer edges of the leaf to the inside. So it was like super, it was like green. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Now I can't remember. Anyway, the edges were like turning red while the middle was still green. I think that's how it went. But it was really beautiful, and I try to take pictures of stuff that I'm in awe about. So, speaking of being in awe and awakening to, noticing things around us that we didn't particularly notice before, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I have a few days of collected notes, and I thought I might see if I can squeeze them all together. They're a little bit about awakening. I definitely, I heard in my sobriety program that there was this spiritual awakening. And I'm telling you, that is exactly what it feels like. It feels like a spiritual awakening. It's like even if I can't like fully comprehend the idea of spirituality, there has definitely been an awakening in sobriety. And the further I go in sobriety, like the longer I stay sober, the more awake I feel. And it helps me to ingest. And I suppose that's why I'm able to show up here every day and talk about what's going on, what's in my heart. Um, I want to talk about those shared human experiences, the longing, the searching, and this recent awakening that I've been feeling. Like it's like slowly without this is going to be hard to articulate, but it's like the more that I listen to other people, the more it guides my attention towards the meaning of things that happen in my life. Like, and it's my choice to either see purpose in everything or to aimlessly walk through life. And what I have decided, especially in stroke recovery, is that I have to have the desire to see purpose in everything. Like I have to feed that desire. Um, because if I don't, I lose hope and I lose inspiration. And it's a choice. It's a choice as to how I'm going to let the world around me, my environment, the people around me, my experiences, how am I going to let them guide my life? How am I going to let them inspire me or not inspire me? Um, I was listening to a share in one of my sobriety meetings the other day, and I was really interested in what I was hearing about whether this person looked at something as a sign or not. And she was choosing to look at it as a sign. She didn't know what the meaning was, but she chose to give it meaning, right? And and that was really inspiring to me. Um, Another topic that's been rolling around in my noggin over the past few days is the idea of waiting. And I had a podcast on waiting, but I was talking to my sponsor yesterday and we were talking about waiting and I said, I have felt like I have been practicing waiting for several years now. It's like everything since my stroke, everything that I want to happen, I have to wait for it. And I said to my sponsor, there are two kinds of waiting. There's the times when we don't have a choice, that the waiting is forced on us by an illness, and we're waiting for a diagnosis or we're waiting for treatment. And and there is such uncertainty during that waiting. And then the other type of waiting, the other kind of waiting is the kind when we choose to wait. When we build wisdom and trust. Both, I believe, are conducive to building wisdom and trust. You know what I mean? It's like the first one is simply building the wisdom and the trust. When we're waiting and we don't have a choice and we have uncertainty and we don't know what's going to happen, but we don't have a choice, we have to wait. And then the other type, when we choose to wait, is like using the first type of waiting as a lesson. I feel like I'm talking in circles, but it's making sense in my brain. Letting the times when we have to wait and we don't have a choice train us for how to wait when we do have a choice. So letting those seasons in my life when I don't have a choice train me to choose patience when I do have a choice. Waiting with intention transforms, I think, hopelessness and fear into faith. And it's practicing that pause, but it's giving the pause itself purpose. Um, I think that when we build those muscles in those different types of waiting, when we build those muscles and we start to cultivate trust and faith in just the world, in just, whether it's the world around us, the universe, or God, it's choosing to have faith in that, to trust in that time is not going to erase the potential of what I'm waiting for. And that is hope. Today I wrote down, as I was listening to people sharing, I wrote down that hope saves lives. And I know that it has saved my life. And I was trying to think about, like, what is the relationship between waiting, faith, and awakening? I think that hope has been built in my life through encouragement from others, for sure. Through experiencing the waiting, through waiting and going through like those feelings of self-pity and loneliness, and hope ends up emerging as really like an act of survival. It's not just a feeling, it's like my insides clawing their way out, like I just know how hard it was for me. And I've shared so many times before about going on Amazon and buying myself some hope stickers so that whenever I felt hope after my stroke, I would put a sticker on my mirror because I was so hopeless. I was hopelessly spiraling towards self-destruction quietly. That's scary. That's really scary. And I reflect on those that period after my stroke where I would go back and forth. That's why I got the stickers. I would have days that I felt hope and days that I felt like my life was over. And I kept showing up every day and did that daily practice and made the choice that I was going to believe in possibility, that everything was going to be great, and I felt like I was lying to myself sometimes. And sometimes I still do. Sometimes I'm like, what are you doing? Because logic can tell me otherwise sometimes. Um, when I go through, like, I'm in my fourth year. I guess I'm living my fifth year post stroke, and um, there are days that I'll still feel that same freaking setback, the dizziness, the visual, the inability to focus, like visually, mentally, a headache. I've been having sharp pains behind my eyes today. And so doing things like looking around, looking up in particularly, or side to side, looking at something that's bright like a light, it causes the eye pain. And so I like have to restrain myself from doing that. And when I get that self-talk that's like, okay, you gotta take care of yourself, okay, self-care, you're doing too much, it gets so exhausting. And I know that folks who are recovering from a stroke and live with a chronic um, disorder or chronic pain, I know you know what I'm talking about. Like when you wake up one morning and there it is, there's the freaking migraine again. And I'm going through my head, like, what did I do? I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that, and I'm beating myself up. I'm sinking into self-pity. And when I sink into self-pity, I feel that loneliness on its tail and it starts taking over. So it takes a lot of work to get back into that act of survival, to like start clawing its way out again, that hope, and cultivate it again. um, I would like to think that the more often I do it, the easier it is, but I don't know, it's questionable sometimes. So but one thing that grows the more times that I get back into hope, that I'm able to cultivate hope, is faith that I can do it the next time. So, in sobriety, that my sobriety program introduced me to the idea of faith. And all I needed was willingness and openness. And when when I had the willingness, it cracked the door open. And when I opened my heart to listen to what other people were saying, what I heard from other people told me that I don't have to feel this way. I don't have to be discouraged all the time. That sometimes life gets lifey, and blah blah blah, all of these things. But when I start experiencing it over and over again, I begin to have this faith. And it's something I have to actively participate in. It doesn't just come to me. Um, but when it shows up, I need to notice it I need to make a conscious decision to invite it in and let it be a part of my day. So faith then, of course, has gotten me to think a lot about God. And um, what's interesting is I went to church yesterday and the sermon was about your concept of God, like evolving your concept of God. And I thought, I didn't think church people I didn't think church people talk about your concept of God. I just thought that there is a God that they all believe in, and it's all exactly the same. They all believe in exactly the same God, and it looks exactly the same. And that's not what I heard yesterday. I heard, and it makes sense, but for some reason, I need somebody up on the stage to tell it to me. So one thing that he said was there's a difference between believing in God and believing that God is here. And I was like, oh my, oh my God. Yeah, totally. If you recall, like several months ago, I had like an epiphany one night, and I came in and gave you my podcast about that epiphany. And what I was saying was when I get down on my knees before I go to bed and I say my prayers, that I was always feeling like I was picking up the phone and dialing up God's number. And that night, I realized that I'm not calling God up, like he's already here. And so when this guy, I don't know, what is he, a priest? No, pastor, a pastor. Sorry, see, I'm new at this. So when the pastor said something about there's a difference between believing in God and believing that God is here, I thought, "Ah, I just reached a new level when that happened, you know? Because it was not just a belief that there's something out there, but it was a belief that there is a presence right here. And so then he went on to talk about and that it's omnipresent. And then he was going on to talk about how my conception of God shapes me and my behavior. Like, so what I've heard in my recovery, because we all get to talk about our beliefs and our concept of God and all of that stuff. And I've heard people who were raised going to church, they're raised Catholic, some people say they were believed in a scornful God or a judgmental God or a loving God or and I realized yesterday that's what he was talking about, that everybody has their own conception. Either God can be a father, God can be, for some, a mother, God can fill a role in your life, and it's different for everybody. And that makes sense to me too. And I realized that, okay, that's what's going on. That's what my conception of God is. And I'm allowed to do that. You know, I always need permission for things. So, um, going all the way back around to what I was talking about at the beginning, where I was listening in this meeting to a woman talking about something that she chose to be a sign for her. She had the choice of whether she she was open to what God was showing her and considering, just as a direct result of that, is considering who God is for her. And then that that process can happen in stillness, in struggles and pain, in synchronicities. I've talked a ton about signs over, I went through the sign phase. It's not gone. I still do the sign game, but not as much. I haven't been uh, seeing any signs. Sorry, I was looking at the bird feeder outside. I haven't been seeing any signs, so maybe I need to start like doing the actively asking and stuff like that. But it's my choice to see things unfold in front of me as a sign, as I get to choose whether that's God showing me who he is or not. And through that, I'm solidifying that belief that he is omnipresent. So the awakening thing, when I was drinking and before my stroke, so that's two different Rachel versions. Rachel version 1.0 did not have, I was living in a fog. It's like when I think about how my brain worked back then, it really wasn't, it was probably like working a tiny little percentage of what it was capable of. You know how they say that we only use like a certain percentage of our brain? Well, drunk versions use even less percent of their brains. And that's what I remember from being actively drunk all the time. And prior to my stroke, I was definitely using so this is Rachel version 2.0. I was definitely using my brain more. I was maxing it out because I was multitasking. I was working in my career. I was working like 10, 12-hour days. I was constantly on. I was constantly trying to solve problems, figure things out, get a promotion, and then on the side, I was also doing my recovery, going to meetings, and all these things. And now that I don't have that layer of to-dos in my life, I have more space available. I have more brain space available. And I feel like that's why I get to be a little more present. I feel like that part of stroke recovery has been a gift. No, I'm not grateful I had a stroke. I I really don't think I'll ever be grateful that I had a stroke. But I can say, and I might be wrong, maybe one day I'm going to be like, oh, thank God I had a stroke. I don't think that's going to happen. But what I can say is one positive thing that I get to experience today is that I get to slow down and I get to be present. Um, I get to notice things like, oh, when I'm praying, I'm not calling God to me. I'm calling myself back to God. I'm not summoning him. I'm waking up to him. I'm believing that he is here. When I was in church yesterday, well, that's what we're gonna call him. The guy said, raise your hand if you have experienced the presence of God during times of pain or something like that. And all these people raised their hand. And then he said, okay, now raise your hand if you have experienced the presence of God in times of joy. And a bunch of people raised their hand. And I sat there looking around like, what? I was like, how are these people so confident in this presence of God that they raise their hand, not needing any proof of it? Like, what is their proof that they can be like, without explanation, I knew that God was there? Like, how do you know? Is it a serenity that you feel? I mean, because if the guy said, raise your hand if you've ever been, out for a run and you felt this overwhelming sense of serenity. Yeah, I would raise my hand. But I cannot tell you that I've had some sort of proof that God is present. I was really kind of thrown aback by that. Not that I'm doubting them. I'm more like, what am I missing? That's more of what I was thinking. So, I'm so glad that I can come here and just talk about whatever the hell I want. And I know that people will relate. And if you don't relate, or if you're like, oh, Rachel, when are you gonna get it? Then that's fun. You get to be a part of the soap opera that is my life until Rachel wakes up and smells the coffee because I there's some things that I just don't get right now. And that's fine. That's part of the journey, right? I'm only 51. I have a whole another half of my life to live where I get to meet the day and see it as an invitation to find purpose in my life, to find patience in my life, to feed hope, and to awaken. And I feel strongly that my life has shifted from surviving to being and noticing. And that's so nice. That's so nice to have experienced that. And maybe one day, what all these people are raising their hands about, I'll experience that too. I'm going to need to go to church a little more, probably. That's what I think. Thank you for listening today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.